Well, guys, that's not the sun. That's the light in the bathroom. But regardless of the fact, just woke up about 10 minutes ago. It is about a quarter after 7 o'clock in the morning. And we are gonna get ready, get some breakfast. Most important meal of the day, get the free continental breakfast here. That was nice when I pulled in. Found that out. And we're gonna get going. Yeah, I'm gonna have to eat, come back, sit a little bit. Hall of Fame doesn't open until 10 o'clock, so still got a little bit of time before we get that far. But let me tell you, it was a long day yesterday. In North Carolina, about 40 minutes north of Charlotte. So let's go. Let's get this going. I would have slept in till like 8 o'clock. I'm not one for usually sleeping in. I'm usually up anywhere between 6 to 8. But I was going to sleep in until 8 because not getting to the hotel till just after 11:30 last night. And we had some fornication going on in the room next to me that woke me up at 7 o'clock this morning. So a little sleepy right now, a little tired getting up. But I think once I get some food in me this morning, get some beverages, I will be good to go. I will be hydrated and ready to take on the last 50-minute drive, 40 to 50 minutes of this drive to get to the Hall of Fame. You can tell I'm tired. I'm not even speaking right. So we're gonna get to it. All right, ladies and gents. Let me roll the windows up. There we go. Okay, we are going to the famed North Wilksboro Speedway. Tried making a call to let them know I was on my way over in about a half hour or so, and I didn't get a reply back. So I left a message, still no reply back. I was waiting at the hotel a little bit longer just to make sure. I'm going to try to go and get a hold of the caretaker in person, see if he can give me a little bit of a tour and take a sneak peek of a racetrack that is no longer in use. It is abandoned, and I think it's going to be a really fun time. They raced there when NASCAR was first established in 1949 and stopped racing there in 1996 due to, I guess, the original owners of the racetrack sold it off to a couple of other owners, one of them being Bruton Smith. He owns all the SMI racetracks in NASCAR today, and more or less there was a dispute. But the reason why the original owner had sold it in the first place was NASCAR was looking to probably take it off the schedule. They used to have 2 races. They went down to 1 the last 2 years of its existence. And they ended up, when they sold it over, it was either they were going to have to reinvent it, I guess, add more seats, because NASCAR was selling out everywhere, and the fact that they only had about 35,000 seats on this short track, it just wasn't going to be enough. They could have made way more money elsewhere, which I get the business plan. Well, I'll learn a little bit more about it today. I don't know too much because it did close down before I was born, so can never say I actually watched the race on TV there either. I've watched some old highlights of races there. Jeff Gordon won the last race in its existence in 1996, so we'll get to see how this trip will go from here. So I'm going to do something a little different here. We've got something a little different going on right now, and that is going to be a little bit of story time here on my trip over to North Wilkesboro Speedway. So this is, looking back on it, it seems like it was a terrible situation. Last year when I went to Indianapolis for the Brickyard 400, there was rain in the area all weekend. It was raining where I lived all weekend. We were about 4 hours from the racetrack. We planned on making it a one-day trip to go up, or down and west to Indianapolis from where I live, and had a friend go with me. Spent the night at his place, then we took off from his house in the morning, and we were driving up there. It was clear as day. Just started raining about a half hour out from the racetrack. We got there a few hours early, and the only reason we even left was because, one, you never know if they're going to race, even though the night before it looked like it was going to rain. But the fact that we woke up in the morning and it was a 10% chance of rain. So it was like, oh, wow, it looks like they're going to probably race today. And then a pop-up shower out of nowhere, and it basically stayed over the top of the racetrack. So what we did, we didn't have a ton of money going into the trip. Again, we were going to make it a one-day thing. We were going to go there. We were going to come back. Worst case scenario, if it did get rained out, we were going to get a hotel room. I was going to call off work the next day because I was supposed to work. And we were going to watch the race on Monday. No big deal. So we had planned on that. And we had also planned on there being a race that day as of early in the morning. Went to the racetrack, visited the racetrack, got all of our souvenirs, got to walk around the track, so that way when we came back the next day, we could watch.
In 2 miles, take exit 73B for US 421 north toward Wilksboro, Boone.
Thanks, Google. So what we did was got the souvenirs, visited the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Hall of Fame. Really cool. If you ever visit the racetrack, I highly recommend it. It is worth the price of admission, especially if you're an IndyCar fan, but just a race car fan in general. It's just amazing. The facility itself, amazing. Even though you can't see the entire racetrack, it's just the nostalgia. You can feel the nostalgia from the time you look at the front entrance and walk through the gates. So we're walking back out. Now, it's free to park at every NASCAR track and every race I've been to leading up to that point and ever since that point. So I didn't think anything of it. I pulled into a parking lot, which I thought was Indianapolis Motor Speedway parking lot. They were waving people in, but nobody was paying to park. Nobody was, giving money out. So where I parked, I was actually on the side. I wasn't actually in Indianapolis Motor Speedway parking lot.
In half a mile, take exit 73B for US 421 north toward Wilksboro, Boone.
Okay, thanks. So the fact of the matter is, I went and I lost my train of thought. Okay, so we were leaving the racetrack. It was about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 o'clock.
Take exit 73B.
4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. We had not eaten yet. It was raining. I mean, it was raining the entire time. We had gotten there. We were just, like I said, we were going to get all the visitation out of the way so we didn't have to leave as early in the morning to watch the race. Got back out to the parking lot. My car was gone, and I didn't know what happened. There was a guy that owned a liquor store that I can't think of the name off the top of my head of what the store is, but he owned, I'm going to assume he either owned it or he was the head manager there or whatever. And comes up to me. Mind you, again, it's pouring down rain. He's like, "Can I help you, sir?" And I was like, yeah, my car's not here. I parked over in on the corner right here. He's like, "Oh," he's like, "Well, you guys parked here illegally, and we caught you on the security camera sneaking into the racetrack facility." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, I had no clue I had parked there illegally. There was nobody taking money, and he was like, "If you guys would have paid the $20 in advance to park there, I would have let you guys park there." And I was like, "But there's no parking, at NASCAR tracks." It's like, "Well, you're not on Indianapolis Motor Speedway facility, whatever, or parking lot, whatever." I parked illegally. I wasn't going to win the battle. I was being super nice at the guy. He was being a jerk the whole time. "Oh, you got you sneaking into the racetrack." And I mean, I couldn't believe it. My friend couldn't believe it. The car's gone. So I had to ask him, okay, who took the car? Where can we get it back? And we walked. Before we walked, he was like, "Oh, it's over on the sign back here." And he points at the back of the building. So we had to walk all the way around his store to the very back of the building. There's a sign that had this towing service. That's who we had assumed took the car. He still wasn't specific on who took it. I mean, he was just being a real snob about it. He was like, he's like, "You guys aren't the first one that have done this." It's like, "This happens at least a couple times every year." And I'm like, "Well, why don't you put a sign stating that, it's illegal to park here unless you pay or something?" I don't know. So And he said that the only reason that he had known about it is because I parked in his spot. Okay. So that was the only reason he even knew about it. Otherwise, we wouldn't have gotten caught. And by his words anyway, that's how we wouldn't have gotten caught. And so we had to search it up on Google. We could have called an Uber. There was no taxi that I saw in the area. We could have called an Uber. The reason why we didn't is, even though the last couple of years it doesn't look like Indianapolis Motor Speedway really gets that many fans in attendance, there are still roughly 55,000 fans the last couple of years that have been going to the race. Last year was a little bit lower in attendance, but that's because they ended up racing on Monday, because the day, that Sunday, there had to have been at least 50 to 60,000 people there. Everybody's trying to leave at once. If you've ever left any sort of concert, sporting event, that is exactly what it happens unless you're like the first one out the door, you leave early, whatever. And so there's a lot of traffic. We're not going to be able to get an Uber in here. All right, this is the only racetrack I've ever been at where it's actually in the city that the racetrack is named after. It was in Indianapolis. You couldn't have, I mean, it wasn't quite downtown, but I mean, you were in Indianapolis. I had nowhere to go. We had to walk 45 minutes in downpouring rain to get my car out. I called the towing place on the way down there just to make sure they had my car, and they said they did. It was going to be $150 to get it out. Well, they wanted $150 in cash outright. And I was like, well, we don't have that much cash on us. You know, can we use the card? And they were willing to make the budge to use the card. Well, again, we had spent a couple $100 leading up on the trip, and saving the money for the hotel room on the way out. We wouldn't have had enough money for the hotel room and the car. So I was trying to bargain with them, trying to get the car out for a cheaper price than $150, and trying to say, hey, listen, this wasn't my fault. There was no signs. You know, there was nobody taking money out in front. You know, I had no clue I parked illegally. And they're like, well, by our policy, you know, I mean, that's that. I had to pay the $150. So I had to call my parents to get money off of them. We had actually booked the hotel room as we were walking down there, so we just didn't have the money for that. We needed money for food and everything else. That was all we had it for. He had some extra money on his PayPal account that ended up paying. We got a bunch of food from Walmart that night, but they weren't going to accept PayPal, so we didn't have enough cash on us, despite having cash in the bank account, money in the bank account. And it was terrible. it was a terrible experience. It was a lonely experience, despite the fact that we were together. If that would have happened on this trip by myself, I would have been freaking out. I mean, I wasn't really freaking out to the full extent that he had to calm me down. But in my head, I'm like, man, this sucks. You know, we don't know what to do. They weren't allowing my parents to pay over the phone at first, but they were like, we finally were able to, like, hey, listen, you know, we got a couple teenagers over here, because at the time I was 19, you know, and our kid is going to be stuck out of state, and I was trying to tell him I don't get paid until Friday, so I wasn't going to be stuck in Indianapolis for 6 days. Like, I just couldn't afford it, and at the time. Ended up getting the car back out, and we get to the hotel, and they said that we didn't have the hotel room booked, even though we had booked it on the way there. They were trying to get us to pay the money for the room. We're like, listen, we don't have, you know, cash to pay for the extra room and the deposit. You know, you need to find this room. They're like, well, you came all the way to Indianapolis from Northwest Ohio without any money. And I'm like, no, we had money. We got a car towed. You know, had to tell them the whole spiel. Finally, found that we had booked the room. We got the receipt back. It was not a good day. Between the race getting out, rained out, car getting towed, almost didn't even have a hotel room to sleep in. Nowhere to go. Hindsight, we got to see both the Xfinity and the Cup race the next day, because if you had tickets to one or the other, they let you watch both. They had a doubleheader. Xfinity was like 10 o'clock in the morning. Cup race was still at 2 in the afternoon. got to see the regular season finale. It was pretty cool. It was up to that point the best race I'd seen live. It was worth the wait, but man, when I go back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway someday for the Indy 500, which I will do at some point in time, I need to pay that guy back. I mean, that guy cost me $150, a lot of time. I had to explain to my boss why I was calling off work because I got my car towed. So even if I had to come home and miss the race, which I wasn't going to do anyway, if I had to come home and miss the race, I wouldn't have been able to make it to work in time. It was, by the time we got to the hotel, it was about 9 o'clock at night. It's a 4-hour drive. I would have had to get up for 3 o'clock at work in the morning. If the race would have been over at 4:30, 5 o'clock like originally it would have been, if they raced at 2 o'clock on time, I would have been home by like 9, 10 o'clock, no problem, like getting to work. But that was just a terrible...
In 2 miles, take exit 277 for Windy Gap Road, Speedway Road.
Never had an issue since. Hopefully never will. Never had an issue before that. I'd been going to tracks before that. So, note to self, don't park in that parking lot when I go back to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And if I do, and he wants me to pay to park, I will spit on the dollar before I give it to him. Like, something. I mean, it was just, again, a terrible feeling. That was that story. Oh, and sure enough, speaking of which, if you watched the vlog yesterday, which I highly recommend it, stay in tune with what I'm doing now. I had a flat tire situation before I had even gone on lunch break at work, before I got off of work. Had to get the tire patched up. I had a similar situation when I was coming home from Indianapolis. Had no clue my left rear tire was going super low until I woke up, until I got to work the next morning and realized it was...
In half a mile, take exit 277 for Windy Gap Road, Speedway Road.
It was about flat to the rim, just like it was yesterday, only it was the left rear instead of the right rear, and these are my older set tires. So I had to get that tire patched up that day too, so that costed me money on top of it. And I'm thinking the only reason I caught a flat tire and I had a nail in it, just about like a...
Take exit 277, then turn right onto Old US 421 Road.
Excuse me for the Google trying to speak over me. She has no manners.
Turn right onto Old US 421 Road, Speedway Road.
So I had...
Continue on Old US 421 Road for 4 miles.
Okay. So, got home, had a flat tire. How we made it a 4-hour drive that Monday night without blowing the tire, and it was flat on the rim, me not knowing. The handling wasn't bad at all, so I have no clue. I have no clue how we made it. Lucky that we made it. So that flat tire yesterday kind of reminded me of that situation as far as that coming home, and I wanted to tell the story because eventually I was going to have to tell it. Why not while I'm driving, you know, on a 9-hour trip to tell the story at some point in time on the way. So again, gonna get to the North Wilkesboro Speedway here pretty soon. Gonna hopefully take some definitely gonna take some pictures. Hopefully I can vlog some of it while I'm getting the tour. Hopefully we can get the tour in today and the caretaker is there. If not, we will come back on Monday, worst case scenario, before I leave the state of North Carolina on my way out. Can't really zoom out. Got some rain in the area, trying to get this part of the vlog done beforehand. We are at the North Wilkesboro Speedway. Just talk to the caretaker. I'll talk more about that conversation when I leave. Definitely a smaller facility. Did not think that this track was as high banked as it is. Definitely looked flatter on TV. You can see the restrooms in there. restrooms, and I wonder, it really is a shame to see a track go away like this. What if they couldn't hold a NASCAR regulated race? They weren't going to hold any races at all, it seems like. Not a bad seat in this place. If you were to watch this race from a grandstand's perspective. I mean, you could just hear the building. The press box is right here, the suite section. This is the suite section. Press box is right over the middle over here. Crazy. The way to get here is a lot like of many of the tracks I have seen. I'm out in the middle of nowhere. Hundreds of millions of dollars if they were to rerun this place. They would have to repave, they would have to put lights in. Crazy. Victory Lane right in the middle over there. They'd have to put more garages in. Amazing. Close up of the garage. Falling glass from the windows. You can see how they're just bowed in. Well guys, I just visited the North Wilkesboro Speedway. Very cool trip. I actually got there and there was a gentleman with his kid that was there that used to watch NASCAR back in its well, maybe not necessarily the heyday, but its most popular days, and remembers races from there. He went back to visit. That was his first time at that racetrack specifically. I talked to him a little bit. And the caretaker was right outside. We both pulled in like one after another, and I caught him at the right time, so he let us in. That's where I took my video. Took a ton of pictures. I wanted to take a souvenir, but I will be back here someday. He said if he makes it back, if I make it back when he's still alive, he'll be more than welcome to let me back in. But so definitely have to make the trip to the Coke 600 here in the coming years. Hopefully I can bring somebody else down with me and they can have just as good of a time as I do. So, yeah, just very interesting. One of his thoughts, he had a lot of information on how the track was going away back in the 90s. The money that was involved, huge figures. I mean, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, it's unbelievable. He doesn't believe that there's going to be a race there ever again. Looking at it and hearing the story, I didn't believe it going in. I still don't. Yeah, I have to agree with him. It's unfortunate, but heading into some rain right now before we get back on the highway. And I'm on the drive now. maybe I'll go out to eat here in a little bit before the NASCAR Hall of Fame, or I'm going to eat just after it, but I'm not too hungry right now, but I know I'm going to be in the NASCAR Hall of Fame for a couple hours, so definitely going to have to videotape in there. So try to keep the vlog running. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back in my second hotel. So just got to Concord here, about 10 minutes away from the racetrack. The NASCAR Xfinity race is going on right now, but we are gonna get set for the Cup race tomorrow. Here's what went down today. Went to North Wilkesboro Speedway. Had a great viewing there, as you guys just saw in a video, little mini clip I had. And I just got back from the Hall of Fame. Spent about 5 hours at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. It was awesome. I got a souvenir Ryan Blaney die cast. I do not have his PPG car. I got the full scale. I collect die casts. There it is. Camera's mirrored. Yeah, you get the point. So, that is pretty cool. Gonna hit the racetrack tomorrow. Tonight I'm definitely gonna get a good night's sleep. This is a nice hotel. I mean, really nothing else to do other than get something to eat here tonight and actually relax for a little bit. Been like on my feet and on the road and on my feet and on the road pretty much since I got in the car and got up after work, even on lunch break when I had my tire situation yesterday. So we're gonna have a fun race, I think, tomorrow. I think it's gonna be a good one. Final race of the round of 16 in the playoffs, but we'll go to the round of 12. My guy Ryan Blaney's gonna be right on the bubble. Gonna take some videos of that, and then maybe hit a golf course some point in time in the morning. Maybe get up around 7, 8 o'clock ish, sleep in just a little bit, and go play 18 before I hit the racetrack for the race at 2 o'clock. So I was gonna videotape at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. The reason why I did not videotape at the NASCAR Hall of Fame is simply for one reason. There was a lot of people there, and I felt like I would have been disrupting everything that was going on. The only clip I've got is me walking into the they had a Jimmy Johnson like trailer hauler, and I took a small little video of that. But even that, I mean, there was like 8 people in there at the same time, so that's just, I didn't feel like being rude. I was so close to putting they had these racing simulators. They had like a qualifying session where you weren't actually in the cockpit. Then they put you in the cockpit. Not the best racing simulator I've been in. In Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, there's a NASCAR race park that's got a very, very nice, I would say better than the NASCAR Hall of Fame as far as racing simulator goes. Because that racing simulator, you can actually feel the shocks. You can feel the bumps of the racetrack. The shocks in it. You can feel every bump of the racetrack. You make contact. You're going through the grass. It's weeble wobbling with the wind flap up and everything. It's very much more realistic. There's only like 4 cars, I think, though, that they have there versus the 16 at the NASCAR Hall of Fame. So if there's a long line, which there very well could be at Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, it's a vacation spot versus Charlotte. So yeah, I highly recommend going there if you're ever there someday. Not that far out. Thought about going, but I mean, that would just make for a little bit longer of a drive home, and I don't feel like going through that again. So yeah, got a race day tomorrow, and hope you guys stay tuned. Hope you guys like my vid. Oh, also with the racing simulator, they got to put me in a stock car. I mean, I was a racer. I raced go-karts from a little kid all the way up until last year. My grandpa got sick, and now I'm not doing it anymore. But at times I miss it, and it's times like this where I miss it. I mean, I had the fastest lap time of the day so far. Now, when I left, there was still an hour left before they closed, but I'm going to assume that last hour my time's going to hold up. I had a 30.687, I believe. So 30.687. Not my best, but wasn't that bad. And in the racing simulators, I did 5 races. I don't know how many laps there were. They kind of, I mean, you're going up against 16 people, and, you know, 3/4, 12 of them don't know how to drive. You know, what feels like a stock car. So, you know, sometimes we wouldn't even get started. There was the first race started at the rear because they take your lap times. The better lap time you get, you start at the front. So, couldn't get a good lap time in. My car was wrecked within the first maybe 2 laps of the race. I got one good lap in, but it wasn't a good enough lap, so I started mid-pack in the next race, and there was a wreck right off the start. Didn't miss it. Third race, there was a wreck off the start again. I did get through it, and that was the race where I had my best lap time, so I started on the pole in the second to last race, in the final race. By the way, in the race, I missed the wreck at the very start. I did finish third, but it slowed so much of my momentum down, couldn't catch the leader despite running faster lap times. Way too far behind. So then in the fourth race, I started on the pole, and I was leading. There was probably, I want to say, like 2 laps to go. It was actually a good battle between me and this one guy. We were actually in the same car, too, so that was pretty cool. We were talking back and forth. Oh, I'm gonna get you. No. It's like coming right back. You know, just kind of yelling at each other as we're driving. But yeah, we were like nose to tail. He was following me. I got caught by a lap car. Then the second race, I thought we had which was my last race, the 5th race. We had an even better battle between us. He was leading. He got a better jump off the restart on the outside and pulled in front of me. He was starting to slowly pull away, and I was running him down. Lap car got in his way, he wrecked, and I finished first, and he finished, I think he ended up finishing third versus first and second the race before. So I got his phone number. Hopefully he'll be a subscriber to the channel. And I also got somebody else's phone number too. Hopefully they can subscribe to the channel. I will notify them about it. So meeting some new friends. Southern hospitality, whether they have a southern accent or not, is a real thing. I've been to a southern state and have stayed for as long as 5 days. You know, this is going to be the 3rd time now, and every single time, I mean, you meet new people. When I was at Atlanta for the NASCAR race earlier this year, it was the best crowd atmosphere as far as the people around me. And I had brought somebody, so I wasn't even alone, and yet we had a group of like 8 people talking about the race the entire time. Very fun. I hope it's like that at Charlotte tomorrow, especially because I'm by myself, so it gives me somebody to talk racing with the entire time. So, yep, that's going to be all for the vlog today. Tune in tomorrow. Going to have some stuff on Monday. Going to visit some of the race shops and start getting on my way out of here. Maybe on Tuesday, gonna drive as far as I can, and then Tuesday, I'm gonna end up going to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, and that was not originally on my agenda. I had never been there, despite living within 2 to 2.5 hours of the place. I just never travel east. I never really bothered to travel east, so figured outside of going to NASCAR races. But I figured, hey, I passed on the way here. It was an extra 16-minute drive. It's worth the extra 16-minute drive to go back through Canton and get to the Hall of Fame again. I literally passed it right on the side of the highway, so I know where it's at. So that'd be pretty fun, too. So stay tuned.